What is up, guys? This is Jacob, and welcome to a special episode of the Spiced In podcast. This is going to be our episode focusing on episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, the ultimate chapter of the Skywalker Saga. Before we go any further, full spoiler warnings. We will be absolutely spoiling the movie. Do not listen to this until you have watched it for yourself. Normally, I might give a little non-spoiler reviews, how I felt about it, but I honestly believe that any sort of non-spoiler review is going to change how you interpret and react to the movie. So just go watch it. It's Star Wars. I don't need to tell you to watch it. You're going to watch it or not, regardless about what I say. So with that said, one last spoiler warning, and let's jump into the conversation. So The Rise of Skywalker, just to kind of get my feelings on it as a movie out of the way. It definitely rushes itself quite a bit in the beginning. Despite a 2.5 hour runtime, I feel like it could have used an extra 20 to 30 minutes. This movie just tries to cram so much in to wrap up all the storylines we really care about. It has to take what was set out with The Force Awakens and tie in with what became of The Last Jedi, and then still give a satisfying ending to 8 previous movies, not counting the anthology films. And that's a big ask, especially for just how the Star Wars franchise and the fans have evolved over the past couple of years. Even to further prove this time constraint home, I feel like this was the shortest title crawl I've seen in any Star Wars movie by far. It was about 2 paragraphs long, and then you are right into the movie. The first 20 to 30 minutes are pretty much jam-packed with no second to breathe. The pacing of that opening section is pretty much akin to the light speed jumping and skipping that Finn and Poe execute in the Falcon at the beginning. It's just one scene after another, with not even much dialogue, just as to save as much time as possible. Luckily, after we get out of this sort of expository section, it slows down a little bit and is easier to swallow, but it's still lacking a sort of patience that I appreciate out of my Star Wars films. If you look back at especially A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, those movies are really slow-paced and take quite a while to get to the action. You have plenty of time to get to know the characters before you really dive into the deep, meaty content of the movie. Nothing really pops off in A New Hope for the first 45 minutes easily. I feel like The Rise of Skywalker kind of lacks this world building that I really would have liked to see. Luckily for me, I'm going to go read all the comics and books they put out on this, so I'm not going to miss a whole lot. I'm sure they're going to expand on it more, but your average Star Wars fan is probably going to miss a lot of this. And speaking of the average Star Wars fan versus the EU-crazed fanatic, I feel like this movie is asking them to take a lot of leaps and bounds. I mean, we go from as grounded as you can be for a space fantasy movie. We're pretty much asked right from the beginning, hey, you need to buy in that Palpatine is back, and that's just okay, and there's not a really explanation for it at all, and that we also want you to ride along with the mysticism of the Sith that hasn't ever really taken place in the movies. This is stuff that's happened in the old canon a ton, and has been, written about somewhat in the extended universe, but in the movies, the Sith are just basically bad Jedi. There's no cults or mysterious daggers or crazy powers. It's just bad Jedi that can choke people and shoot lightning out of their fingers for the most part. So this movie really, especially for the last movie of the saga, takes some leaps and bounds and tries to really push the envelope. I'm okay with that, but I know a lot of people aren't going to be. So Palpatine is ruling from a ancient Sith planet called Exegol. This is what's great about being able to finish up the Aftermath books. They build the fact that the Empire flees into the wild space of the galaxy to rebuild after Palpatine's death in the Battle of Jakku. And that led to the rise of the First Order, but it also led to the rise of the Sith fleet still waiting in the background in the shadows. It would have been really cool to see them bring out a Sith world from the Old Republic world, but it's perfectly fine. Just like there are many, many Jedi temples, it makes sense that there's many, many Sith worlds of importance. Just like The Force Awakens, I feel like if you had this gripe beforehand, you can definitely take it to JJ for making some reiterative plot lines and details. The first main one you have is within 10 minutes of the movie, and that's Poe and Finn flying the Falcon to get some info from a spy and what pretty much is a trench run from the second Death Star. When they return to this forest planet, we get their first real payoff for reading for some of the extended universe material, and I kind of love that. When they land out on this forest planet, you see that the Resistance has their base set up around a blockade runner similar to the Tantive 4, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the same blockade runner that they stole at the end of Resistance Reborn. It's a small detail, but it's cool to see them bridging these gaps, making these details meaningful. We don't know it yet, but you can see with Rey and her training that there's definitely some rage involved, and she's not completely at peace, I would say. But hey, the adventure's got to go, and off they go to yet another desert planet. I thought it was really cool. It was a beautiful, beautiful shots, and it's really awesome, the little detail they included that it was only occurring every 42 years, which is the time between the release of A New Hope and the Rise of Skywalker. So I thought that was a cool little tidbit to include there. And we also get more of an expansion of Rey and Kylo's Force connection. They've been able to interact with each other with this projection power, but now they're also physically making contact with each other and transporting objects across space. And at this point, we're introduced to the man himself, Lando Calrissian. It was great that Billy D. Williams was able to come back for this movie. I feel like he was more or less the last original trilogy character that we really needed to make this perfect. Then our heroes are off to find a ship that will hopefully lead them to Exegol. And we get this kind of cool Indiana Jones-esque scene of them flying on these skiffs through the desert, chased by stormtroopers on these treaded motorbikes and jetpack troopers. One thing you can never take away from this movie is just how visually stunning it is. As our heroes defeat them, they then get swallowed by this sort of sinking sand. And we get probably the first, unsolved plot line, which they're sinking down. Finn's like, dude, Rey, I gotta tell you something that I never told you before. Then they sink down, and he never tells them. Some people believe it's that, he has romantic feelings for her. Others believe that it's something we're going to talk about later. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's ever going to be explained fully. But they find this giant snake monster down there, and Rey shows off Force healing powers, which is really cool. It might have been cooler if I didn't see that in Mandalorian the day before. I kind of wish they would have staggered that release. So Rey was the first person to do it in live action, even though Baby Yoda was hinted to be doing it episodes beforehand. But, it would have been cool the first time I see it is from Rey rather than Baby Yoda in the TV show. But it's fine though. They find a dagger with a Sith inscription and have to get out of there. C-3PO is able to read it, but for some reason in his programming isn't allowed to translate it, so they have their next MacGuffin to tackle. And as they're trying to leave, Rey senses Kylo's presence and goes out to confront him. While they're doing this, the rest of them are trying to activate this old dude's ship, which is very clearly the ship that dropped Rey off on Jakku. So then Chewie goes to chase her down to try and get her back in the ship when he gets kidnapped by the Knights of Ren, which, man oh man, I really wanted to see more of them, and I'm sure they're probably going to come up in the now current Kylo Ren comic book series, but I feel like they were just so wasted. At the end of the day, they're just cool looking dudes in the background, and they don't really serve much of a purpose. But Rey and Kylo have this awesome fight scene. They kidnap Chewie. She slices his TIE silencer in half. We're talking about this troop transport she's trying to bring it back down because it has Chewie in it, and he's trying to push it out to get it out into orbit. And she's exerting herself so strongly that she shoots Force lightning out of her fingertips and blows that shit out of the sky. She's obviously broken up about it, but they have to flee. So in the span of about 10 minutes, we've seen her heal a monster and kill her friend with two vastly different Force powers. I feel like I'm in Knights of the Old Republic choosing my Force feats after leveling up, and I can't decide between light side and dark side, so I'm doing a little of both. But hey, I guess that plays into the themes that we've seen lately with books and the movies of, it's not light side, it's not dark side, it's the Force and how you use it. So at this point, they lost the dagger, but they know C-3PO has memorized the inscription. He just can't read it, so they need to take it to the next planet. They're going to go find a droid hacker, basically. So Poe takes them to this occupied planet. There we meet Zori Bliss and her friends. And I gotta say, she has one of the best character designs I've seen in a long time. I love the look of her outfit. Very Boba Fett-esque, and just not how it looks per se, but just how awesome it is, honestly. And this, okay, forget everything else in the 2.5 hours of the movie. This is the most important part. Poe, my boy, is a former Spice Runner. That's right, first off, one of my favorite sequel trilogy characters is now the official mascot of this podcast. Spice running is a thing in the movies. The Spice Den, it's so perfect. We're all Team Poe from now on. I don't care what you thought before. I guess you could call yourself the Poe Boys if you wanted. But from now on, Poe is our official podcast mascot. So they go in with also a great addition to the universe, Babu Frick. This tiny little silly alien monkey kind of looking dude who's going to hack C-3PO's brain. And we get this really sad moment where we think C-3PO is going to die, or basically lose all of his memory to give up this information. And it happens, and then Kylo's ship shows up, and they're like, we need to get the heck out of here. And that's when Rey senses that they took Chewbacca, and he's still alive on that ship. So, I mean, I'm happy Chewie's alive, don't get me wrong, but also I kind of wish they would have just committed to the bit. Like, if you're gonna go there, commit to it. But I don't know. So then we go up to try and get Chewbacca, and Zori gives Poe her ticket out off the planet with a First Order Captain's Medallion. So we go up to get to Chewbacca, and Rey goes to try and steal the dagger. She has another confrontation with Kylo, and they're fighting through their force projections because he's down on the planet. And she's revealed that her parents might be no one, but her grandfather is Emperor Palpatine himself. And this is why she was forced to use that Force Lightning earlier. This movie asks you to take several leaps of faith with it, and I feel like this is a big one. This, obviously, if you've been paying attention, this is probably not the way that they intended originally for the story to go. I don't mind it. It's, I don't think it takes away from anything. It just kind of is what it is, really. But then they nope out of there. The Finn and Poe rescue Chewbacca, but they get cornered by a bunch of stormtroopers. Hux is, who I haven't really mentioned beforehand. He's still a general, but he's kind of the joke general, where you have a new grand general, more or less, really running the show. So Hux goes off with these stormtroopers to execute our boys, and then Hux shoots the stormtroopers, and he's like, I was the spy all along. They go back to the Falcon, he lets them go, and he tells them to shoot him so it looks believable, and then they part ways. And of course, Hux goes back to the bridge to explain himself and gets shot, because they're pretty much like, yeah, you're the spy, okay, moving on. Rey and Kylo confront each other in the hangar, and they're fighting for a while. And that's when she heads out and jumps on the floating Falcon outside the ship, and they leave. At this point, they know where they need to go, and that is Endor. Not the Force moon of Endor, another moon of Endor. Endor, if you're not aware, is a gas giant, so you can't really land on the planet itself, but one of its moons has what they need, and that is, well, we're going to find out, because the Falcon's damaged, we have to crash land, and that's where we find, of course, the wreckage of the second Death Star. And hopefully where we can find our way to Exegol. There we meet some new characters. We have Janna and her tribe. Janna, as we find out, is a defected stormtrooper of the First Order, and they all have come here to live peacefully. And they ride some sort of, it almost looks like a warthog horse hybrid animal, but they agree to help her get across this raging sea to the Death Star, but she asks that they wait until tomorrow when the sea calms down in the morning. They go back to the Falcon and try and fix it up. There, Janna and Finn have a bit of a conversation. They both, of course, talk about how they're both defected stormtroopers, and this is when they find out that they have this common bond. Finn didn't believe there were any more like him. They both defected when they were asked to do something abhorrent, and they said it was based on a feeling. So, this is the other thing I was telling you that the secret could be that Finn was keeping from Rey, and that's that he's Force sensitive. It makes sense with a lot of the other things we have going on, especially with The Last Jedi, where just, hey, it's not just Jedi and Sith that are Force sensitive. There are Force sensitive beings throughout the galaxy. You just, have to know where to look for them. So Finn might be one of them. And it's not out of the question to make the logical leap that all the defected stormtroopers were Force sensitive in a way. So that's when they realized that Rey's not there. So of course, while they were, being patient waiting, she's like, oh, nope, we got only so much runtime left. I got to get going. So she hops on like this catamaran X-Wing kind of sailboat thing. It looks awesome, but flies across or boats across the water. It gets to the Death Star wreckage. And I didn't mention this earlier, but the dagger, it was kind of really weird, but it's like, oh, you match up the dagger with the wreckage and then it points you to where you need to go to find it. And that point just ended up being the throne room of the Emperor, so alright, cool, I guess. I don't know if you really need a map to go there. Just go to the important place, and that's where you're going to find the thing you need. And it's in like an off room to the side of his throne where she finds the Wayfinder to Exegol. And there you see what you saw in that promo that kind of weirded everyone out. That was the Dark Side Rey. It's basically, a lot of people called it from the beginning that it was going to be some sort of vision and it was a fake out, which is what it was. It was basically her Dagobah moment with Luke fighting Darth Vader and seeing himself. That was pretty much exactly what this was. You only see a few seconds where it's a very quick moment. For a split second, I'm like, are they crazy enough to make this its Rey's twin or clone that's been chilling here guarding it? Because if that was the case, that'd be nuts. And then, of course, immediately, that's not the case. But what if, man? What if? So then she exits, and who is waiting there but Kylo? Kylo crushes the object and pretty much says, you have to join me or you're not going to Exegol at all. They fight for a while. Kylo easily has the upper hand, but right as Rey seems like all hope is lost, Leia reaches out with the Force to contact her son. He hesitates and she kills him. But nope, not really. Actually, no, she heals him. So she stabs him through the chest and then heals his wound and leaves and takes his ship. And we have a really touching moment with Kylo, who he gets to talk to Han Solo through his memories there. I've seen a lot of people claiming that this might have been originally planned to be Leia before Carrie Fisher died. I would counter that with saying this movie was clearly not planned until after Carrie Fisher had died. I think it would have been great to have her in that moment, but it just didn't work out. Harrison Ford kills it with his acting, though, in this scene. But we establish here that it's no longer Kylo. Kylo's dead, but Ben lives on. He chucks his awesome lightsaber into the ocean and walks away. Rey, though, takes Kylo's tie, which again looks awesome, and flies to Ahch-To and burns that crap to the ground. He's chucking wood to burn it and goes to throw Luke's lightsaber in the fire when Luke steps out as a Force ghost and catches it. And there are a few of them. Here's another very obvious, hey, screw the Last Jedi throw in that they had there. Luke's basically like, you can't treat a lightsaber so carelessly, even though a movie ago he just chucked it off the cliff of the island after receiving his lightsaber he hasn't seen in 30 years. But whatever. So they talked for a while. She basically said she was going to lock herself on Ahch-To and become a hermit like him because she was too dangerous. He's like, yeah, I was wrong. Don't do that. You should, you're good. You will do what's right. It's not your birth that decides things, blah, blah, blah. Here's our lesson. And then before she leaves, he imparts her with one last gift, which, oh boy, I think this is awesome. He gives her Leia's lightsaber, and it shows a little scene in a forest where him and Leia are training, and it's kind of CG Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, post Return of the Jedi faces. And I think it looked pretty good. It was clearly computer generated, but it looked good for what it was. And they did a very good job of masking how much you actually see their faces, and it's never like a dead-on shot. But I think it's just awesome to establish that Leia had these powers. They didn't just manifest themselves out of the nowhere. And that she did try her hand at being a Jedi, but it just wasn't for her. And she saw if she continued down this path, it wouldn't go great for her. My only complaint is I wish that she didn't have a blue lightsaber crystal. I think it would have been way cooler. Just to, you got the chance. Let's throw in a little different color there. Get I don't know. I'm not thinking purple, but, mix it up a little bit. Give her an orange. But, I guess that takes away from an impact later in the movie. give her a teal. We can, you can always have those off blues that you get in some of the games. And I can't wait for all the custom lightsaber shops to come out with a Luke and Leia dual pack that costs like $800 that I don't have. So she leaves with both lightsabers in hand, but she doesn't have a way to Exegol, except wait, she has everything she needs because the Wayfinder was in Kylo's tie. So she takes out the smoldering piece of junk, and Luke, what I really wish he would have done, again, I'm not going to stay here saying what should have been and what should have not happened in The Last Jedi, but lifts the X-Wing out of the ocean and sets it down, and she flies away. And Red 5 flies again. Oh my, whew. This is kind of when I started like getting some feelings. I didn't even mention when Leia reached out to Ben, she died because of the exertion. That also was a feeling, especially R2, so sad, and I really wish they would have used R2 more. He just kind of is on the sidelines. So Rey's heading to Exegol, and the rest of the Resistance back at camp. Everyone's sad that Leia's died. Then we also have the next fake out, not character death. We have a lot of these. C-3PO gets his memory restored by R2, so everything's fine there. They find Rey's signal from her X-Wing and go to find her and track her down and follow her into the wild space. And they don't have enough people, obviously, but Lando's like, I'm going to fly the Falcon through the galaxy saying, come help us, and we're going to see who shows up. And it's Lando, so of course this is going to go great, because who doesn't love Lando Calrissian? Rey confronts Palpatine in this enormous, like, amphitheater full of Sith cultists, which I really hope this kind of gets explained. It's just, it looks cool, don't get me wrong. But are these just random people? Are they Force-sensitive people? I saw some people speculating that it might be the spirits of past Sith Lords. Like, what's going on here? Palpatine's on straight up like a GLaDOS from Portal, like the arm that supports her from the ceiling is more or less what he's on. And he's like, kill me, and then you're going to become the Sith, and I will pass my spirit on to you, which is a cool new kind of it's been seen before, but it's a fully fleshed out interpretation of the Sith and how they function. But Rey's like, no, and then he's like, I'm going to kill all your friends. You have no choice, because he is still ridiculously powerful. All of her friends are trying to fight this enormous, absolutely bonkers fleet of Star Destroyers. And there's set up to be one way they can stop them, more or less. They have to take out a homing beacon that allows the Star Destroyers to take off, more or less. And so they go to take that out, but then that's not working because the the Final Order bypasses it and uses the command ship to lift them all up. And so then they have to take out the command ship one. So Finn lands a squad of people on the top of a Star Destroyer to go take it out, which is what a thing. We can't shoot it down with the dozens of fighters we have. We gotta hop on and shoot it down. Rey is struggling down there still, and of course that's when Ben shows up. He's just running through basically straight up in like a black sweater and pants, and is just dispatching everyone with a blaster, which I think is awesome. Acting like his dad. And that's when he gets confronted by all of the Knights of Ren. But don't worry, he's got that mad Force connection with Rey, so she passes him Luke's lightsaber through the Force, and he just like gives this awesome shrug and just mows down all the Knights of Ren, thus ending their non-consequential existence. Ben runs in, and hey, it's 2-on-1. They got Palpatine, who's basically a zombie, right? Nope, joke's on them. He sucks the life force out of both of them and becomes completely restored, if not more powerful. And it's like, oh, I don't need you to kill him anymore because I am back to being normal, or at least as normal as you can be with a completely scarred, wrinkled to crap face. He chucks Kylo down a big pit, which, okay, at this point, I gotta air my grievances. Darth Maul, chuck down a pit, survives. Emperor Palpatine, chuck down a pit, survives. Boba Fett, chuck down a pit, inconclusive, let's say. Probably dead. Kylo Ren, chuck down a pit. I'm like, I wonder, he's probably alive. And then, sure enough, he's alive later. Palpatine, like, fires nutso lightning into the sky to disable basically every ship And at this point, Lando's rallied. I feel like it's either this or shortly after. Lando's rallied basically the entire galaxy's worth of ships. You see some awesome people. Like, ooh, I feel like the most excited I got during this entire movie was seeing Wedge in the cockpit. Like, oh, buddy, I love that so much. I was like, yes! And I think the people next to me thought I was crazy, that I got excited for some old Welsh, I think he's Welsh or Scottish dude just sitting in the cockpit. But they're all back. But anyways, that's Palpatine fires crazy amounts of Force lightning and pretty much EMPs every single good guy ship in the sky. But anyways, Rey grabs both lightsabers, advances on Palpatine, uses all of the spirits of all the Jedi in the past to take him down, and again, same thing, put his Force lightning back on himself. I was thinking about this, is kind of funny, like in the original trilogy when Luke's like talking with Obi-Wan's Force Ghost, he's like, hey, you're going to take on the Sith, you're going to take on these bad guys, but I cannot intervene, you have to do this on your own. And then Rey's like trying to do the same thing, and every single Jedi ever is like, alright, hey, don't worry, we got your back. I feel like Luke's in that group of Force Ghosts been like, where were you guys like 30 years ago when I needed you? But they take him down. She takes him down. He like disintegrates. So there's probably really no coming back at this point. But ask me on after episode 12's done. We'll see where we're at. But this kills Rey. Except wait, hold on. Kylo's alive because being tossed down a pit means nothing. This explosion of power like just completely annihilates the entire room, kills all the cultists and her. But Ben comes back, and then he heals her. And then they kiss. And I'm pretty sure, like, at least 30 people in my theater audibly groaned or said no. I don't really care either way. It's just what it is. It's like, alright, cool, that's fine. And then he dies. And I was like, is now she gonna heal him? And then we get, nope, okay, he's dead. He becomes one with the Force. And so does Leia. And all the ships get taken down, because they take down the tracking beacon thing. And everyone wins and everyone's happy. They go back and celebrate. They're sad about the loss of Leia. Poe, our boy, official podcast mascot, tries to get it on with Zari, but she's like, not right now. Even though it's very clear they did in the past, based on how they're acting around each other. And all is fun except for all the people that died. And then, despite what I've seen a lot of people say, I feel like we get the perfect ending to a Skywalker saga. Rey returns back to Luke's boyhood home on Tatooine. We find it sandswept and the lower areas somewhat covered over. And she grabs a piece of scrap and sleds down, just like she did at the beginning of A Force Awakens. She looks around a little bit, feels content, and then goes up top. She buries the lightsabers in the sand and then activates her own yellow lightsaber. The first non-green, blue, purple, red lightsaber we've seen in a movie. The first yellow lightsaber we've ever seen in a movie. Super exciting, and we don't see the bottom, but it's, from what I can probably imagine, it's a double-sided staff lightsaber. Some random lady comes up out of nowhere and asks what her name is. She's like, I'm Rey. And then looks off and sees the Force ghost of Luke and Leia, and she's like, I'm Rey Skywalker. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but I'm happy with it. She might not be a Skywalker by blood, but she embraces the spirit of the Skywalker family, Skywalker lineage. And then she looks off into a binary sunset. One of the best songs in Star Wars, one of the best moments in Star Wars. And I feel like a perfect way to end the saga. Overall, I think this movie was kind of bonkers and all over the place at times, but I loved it for what it was, and I loved it, as bad as this might sound, I loved it for being Star Wars, and I'm happy that it exists. It's gonna be weird without, we don't know when the next movie is gonna happen. We have the Mandalorian, we have the Kenobi series, we have more Clone Wars TV series coming out, but we don't really know what's on the horizon, so... But, for now, I guess that's okay. We still have plenty of comic books and novels to catch ourselves up on. And hopefully I'll finish finally playing Fallen Order this weekend. But anyways, thanks for listening, and thanks for enjoying Star Wars with me. My name's been Jacob, and may the Force be with you.